Black homeless kid drags biker's son from burning wreck. 35 Hell's Angels turn his life around. A homeless 17-year-old saves his tormentor from a burning motorcycle crash. The boy's father, a senior Hell's Angels member, returns with his brothers to change everything. Jamal Washington's fingers trace the equations in his battered notebook, mathematical beauty emerging from pages held together by tape and determination. The numbers formed bridge calculations that would have impressed graduate students at the engineering school across town, a place he'd never been allowed to enter. The abandoned Carnegie Library had become his home after 8 months of sleeping on cold floors and hiding from security guards who called him trash. At 17, Jamal had learned to make himself invisible. His lanky frame folded into corners, his soft voice rarely rose above a whisper, and he limped on an old injury that had never been properly treated. The limp reminded him of better days, back when his grandmother would fuss over every scrape, every bruise, back when home meant warmth and safety and her humming while she cooked Sunday dinner. Those days ended when her heart gave out last spring. Jamal had found her in her chair, the television still playing her favorite show. The apartment went to someone else within weeks. His grandmother's small savings covered the funeral, nothing more. Now the library's broken windows let in October wind that cut through his thin jacket. Jamal coughed, the sound rattling in his chest. The community center had closed for renovations 2 weeks ago, taking away his only reliable shower access. He was getting sick, he knew that much. But day labor corners didn't pay the sick, and he needed every dollar he could scrape together. The notebook pages fluttered in the draft. Jamal smoothed them carefully, remembering how they'd been torn 3 days ago behind the convenience store. 4 boys, all around his age but from a different world, one with cars and clean clothes and futures that didn't involve sleeping in condemned buildings. "What's a homeless doing with a notebook?" the tallest one had sneered, snatching it from Jamal's hands. "Playing engineer?" They'd laughed when Jamal tried to get it back. Their fists had taught him the price of reaching for things that belonged to him. They'd ripped pages out, thrown them in puddles, ground them under expensive sneakers. One boy, lighter-haired than the others, with guilt flickering behind the cruelty, had seemed reluctant, but he'd kicked Jamal's ribs anyway when the others demanded it. Jamal had waited until they left, then crawled through the parking lot collecting every page. He'd dried them on radiators at the library, taped them back together with supplies stolen from a drugstore. The calculations remained intact. The bridges he designed in his mind still stood strong. The alarm on a discarded watch he'd found told him it was 5 in the morning. Time to head to the day labor corner on Industrial Avenue, though he hadn't been picked for work in 9 days. The construction foreman always chose someone else, someone who didn't look quite so much like trouble waiting to happen. Jamal gathered his few possessions, the notebook, an extra shirt, a water bottle, and slipped out through the library's back window. Dawn hadn't broken yet. The streets lay empty except for newspaper trucks and early shift workers heading to factories. The route to Industrial Avenue took him down Highland Road, a steep hill where rich kids liked to race their cars on weekend nights. This Tuesday morning, the street sat quiet under street lamps that painted everything orange and silver. Then came the sound, a motorcycle engine screaming too loud, too fast, pitch rising with dangerous acceleration. Jamal turned toward the noise. Headlights sweeping around the curve at the top of Highland, a bike leaning too far into the turn. The rider overcorrected, and physics took over. The motorcycle went down hard, sparks flying as metal scraped asphalt. The rider flew over the handlebars, tumbling like a rag doll. The bike slid after him, a missile of chrome and steel that caught him against the guardrail with a sickening crunch. Jamal ran without thinking. His limp disappeared in the adrenaline as his sneakers pounded pavement. The rider lay pinned, the bike's weight crushing his leg against the metal rail. And then Jamal smelled it, gasoline, sharp and deadly, pooling under the fallen machine. He reached the wreck and looked down at the rider's face. Recognition hit him like a second crash. Light brown hair, that guilty expression now transformed into pure terror. This was one of them. One of the boys who'd beaten him, destroyed his notebook, laughed while he bled. "Help me," the boy's voice cracked. "Please, God, help me." The bike's engine, still hot from the ride, pressed against the boy's calf. His phone had fallen from his pocket, screen cracked but still lit, lying in the expanding puddle of gasoline. Sparks flickered where metal had scraped through to the bike's electrical system. Jamal stood frozen. Every bruise on his body ached with memory. The torn pages of his notebook, the slurs they'd called him. This boy had participated in all of it. Would this boy have stopped to help Jamal? Would any of them? Please. Tears ran down the boy's face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what we did. Please don't leave me here. The phone sparked again. Jamal saw the future in an instant. Flames racing across gasoline, the boy screaming as fire consumed him. Burning alive was a death nobody deserved. Not for teenage cruelty. Not for anything. Jamal dropped to his knees and grabbed the motorcycle. 500 pounds of steel that wouldn't budge. He repositioned, got his shoulder under the seat, and lifted with everything he had. The bike shifted an inch. The boy screamed as broken bones ground together. I know it hurts, Jamal gasped, but I need you to pull yourself out when I lift. He lifted again, muscles tearing with the effort. The boy dragged himself backward, leaving skin on the asphalt. Jamal's vision went white with pain, but he kept lifting. The bike rose another few inches. The boy pulled free. Jamal grabbed him under the arms and dragged him away from the wreck. 20 feet. 30. The boy was heavy, dead weight except for his screams. Jamal's bad leg gave out and they both fell behind the concrete barrier of a bus stop. The motorcycle exploded. Heat washed over them, fire reaching toward the sky with a roar that deafened. Burning gasoline spread across the road like a river of light. Jamal pulled out his ancient flip phone and dialed 911 with shaking hands. Motorcycle crash on Highland Road, south of the industrial intersection. 1 injured, fire on the roadway. He gave them what details he could, then hung up before they could ask his name. The boy was crying, hands clutched around his shattered leg. You saved me. After what I did, you saved me. Couldn't let you burn. Jamal's voice came out flat, exhausted. Nobody deserves that. Sirens wailed in the distance. Jamal tried to stand, to slip away before the police arrived. Homeless kids and police didn't mix well in his experience, but his leg refused to support him. The ambulance arrived first, paramedics swarming. A police officer pulled Jamal aside, notebook out, asking questions. What happened? Who was he? Where did he live? I'm Jamal Washington. He gave them that much. When they asked for an address, he just shook his head. I don't have one. The officer's expression shifted from professional to uncomfortable. He took Jamal's statement anyway, wrote down the details of the rescue. The paramedics loaded the boy onto a stretcher, still crying, still saying thank you over and over. As they closed the ambulance doors, Jamal heard the boy say something to one of the medics. Tell my dad his name is Jamal Washington. He saved my life. Tell him I'm sorry. Dawn broke over Highland Road, and Jamal limped away from the scene. His clothes reeked of gasoline and smoke. His body screamed with new pains layered over old ones. The day labor corner would have to wait. He needed to get back to the library, to hide and rest and try to understand what he'd just done. A week passed in fever and cold. Jamal's cough worsened, his body shivering even when he wrapped himself in every piece of clothing he owned. He made it to the day labor corner twice, but the foreman took one look at his shaking hands and picked someone else. No one hired the sick. The library's broken windows offered no protection from October's bite. Jamal's notebook lay open to a bridge design, but he couldn't focus on the calculations. His head felt stuffed with cotton, his throat raw. On Sunday morning, he woke to a sound that sent panic through his fevered brain. Motorcycles. Not one or two, but many, a rolling thunder that grew louder and louder until the library's walls seemed to shake. Jamal crawled to a window and looked out, the street filled with bikes. 30, maybe more, all parking in formation in front of the abandoned library. Riders dismounted, leather cuts bearing patches and colors. Hell's Angels. Jamal's breath caught. They'd found him. He tried to run, to escape through the back window, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. His body had nothing left to give. He caught himself against the wall, slid partway down, coughing so hard he saw stars. Boots on the stairs. Multiple sets, heavy and purposeful. Jamal pressed back against the wall, trying to make himself small, trying to disappear. A man appeared in the doorway, big, maybe 50, with a salt and pepper beard and a face weathered by decades of road and sun. He held his hands up, palms out, the universal gesture of peace. Jamal Washington. His voice was deep, careful. "We're not here to hurt you, son. We're here to help. I didn't do anything wrong." The words came out as a wheeze. "I helped him. I saved him. I know you did." The man took a slow step forward. "I'm Connor. The boy you pulled from that wreck is my son, Tyler. And he told me everything." More men appeared behind Connor, but they stayed back, letting their leader approach alone. Connor knelt down, bringing himself to Jamal's eye level. "Tyler told me what he and his friends did to you 3 days before the accident. He told me about your notebook, the beating, the things they said. He's been crying himself sick with guilt ever since, and that's exactly what he deserves to feel." Jamal's vision swam. "Then why are you here?" "Because you saved him anyway." Connor's voice broke. "You had every reason to walk away, to let him face the consequences of his cruelty. But you chose mercy. You chose humanity. That's not something this world sees enough of, son." One of the other men stepped forward, younger, carrying a medical bag. "I'm an EMT. Can I check you out?" "You don't sound good." Jamal wanted to refuse, to maintain some dignity, but another coughing fit doubled him over. The EMT moved in, gentle but efficient, checking pulse and breathing and temperature. "Pneumonia, most likely," the EMT said. "He needs antibiotics, proper rest, warm shelter. This place is killing him." Connor stood, his jaw tight. He turned to address the men filling the doorway. "Brothers, I told you about this young man, about what my son did and what Jamal did in return. I told you we had a debt to pay." The men nodded, a wave of agreement rippling through them. Connor turned back to Jamal. "Tyler wants to make this right. I want to make this right. My brothers here, when they heard the story, they wanted to help too. We've spent the last week making arrangements. I don't understand." Jamal slumped against the wall, too tired to process what was happening. "I'm a mechanical engineer at Fisher Design Group downtown," Connor said. "We have a paid internship program for promising students. As of today, you have a position starting at $1,500 a week. My partner approved it yesterday when I showed him your notebook." Jamal stared. "My notebook?" "Tyler brought it to me after the accident, the one they destroyed. When I saw those calculations—" "Jamal, I have 2 engineering degrees and I had to work to follow your thinking. That bridge design you were working on, it's innovative. It's graduate-level work. Where did you learn structural engineering?" "The library." Jamal's voice was barely audible. "Before they banned me for loitering, I read textbooks, watched lectures on the public computers." Connor's expression shifted to something like awe. "You taught yourself calculus and structural mechanics from library books. Son, do you understand how rare that is? How brilliant you'd have to be?" Another man stepped forward, older, with kind eyes behind thick glasses. "I'm Marcus. I teach at community college and I sit on the admissions board. Connor told me about you. We've arranged enrollment for spring semester, full scholarship. You'll need your GED first. We have tutors ready to help you prepare for the test." A third man, heavy-set with arms covered in tattoos, spoke up. "Name's Joe. I own 3 rental properties in the Heights. Got a studio apartment coming available. It's small, but it's clean and warm. First year's rent is covered. After that, between your internship salary and some part-time work we'll help you find, you'll manage fine." Jamal's head spun. "Why? Why would you do this?" "Because you showed my son that the content of someone's character isn't determined by their circumstances," Connor said. "You had nothing. You'd been victimized by him specifically, and you still chose to save his life. That's the kind of person the world needs more of. That's the kind of person who deserves a real chance." The EMT helped Jamal to his feet. "First things first, we're getting you to a doctor. Got one waiting at the clinic 2 blocks over. He'll fix you up." As they guided him down the stairs, Jamal saw the full scope of what waited outside. 35 motorcycles lined the street, their riders standing at attention. As he emerged, they began to applaud, a thunder of calloused hands that echoed off the buildings. A truck sat parked at the curb, its bed loaded with furniture, boxes, and bags. Clothes, kitchen stuff, bedding, one of the men explained. Everything you need for the apartment. Brothers contributed what they could. A teenager stood apart from the group, leaning on crutches, his leg in a cast from hip to ankle. Tyler, he straightened as Jamal approached, tears already streaming down his face. I'm so sorry. Tyler's voice cracked. What I did, what I said, there's no excuse. I was cruel because my friends expected it, because I was too weak to stand up for what was right. You could have let me die. You should have let me die. No, Jamal surprised himself with the firmness in his voice. Nobody should die for being young and stupid. Tyler held out a brand new notebook, its cover pristine blue. I can't give you back what we destroyed, but maybe this can be a start. My dad said he's getting you a laptop for your engineering work, but I thought. He trailed off, looking miserable. Jamal took the notebook. Thank you. My friends want to apologize too, Tyler continued. They're terrified, which they should be, but they also want to help if you'll let them. Kevin's family owns the laundromat on 5th. He says you can use it free for a year. Josh's mom runs the Silver Spoon Diner. Free meals whenever you want. Brady's dad works at the community center. He got your band lifted, and they want to offer you a part-time job as a facilities assistant once you're feeling better. The list went on. 4 teenagers who'd beaten him in an alley now falling over themselves to make amends. Jamal didn't know what to feel about that. Anger still lived in his chest alongside the pneumonia, but maybe forgiveness wasn't about feelings. Maybe it was a choice, like saving someone was a choice. Tell them I appreciate it, Jamal said finally, and tell them I hope they learn from this. Connor put a hand on Jamal's shoulder. Let's get you to that doctor, then we'll get you settled in your apartment. You've got a shower with hot water, a real bed, and a refrigerator we stocked with food. Tomorrow we'll handle the practical stuff, getting you a bank account, proper ID, all that. But today, you rest and heal. The ride to the clinic passed in a blur. The doctor, a woman named Dr. Patel who smiled warmly despite the early Sunday morning call, confirmed pneumonia and prescribed antibiotics, rest and proper nutrition. You've been running on empty too long, she told Jamal. Your body needs time to rebuild. The apartment was in a converted house on a quiet street lined with maple trees. Small, yes. One room that served as bedroom and living room combined. A kitchenette. A bathroom with a shower that actually worked. But to Jamal it looked like a palace. The furniture was mismatched but clean. A futon that folded down into a bed, a small table with 2 chairs, a dresser, a bookshelf already loaded with engineering textbooks. The boxes contained clothes in his size, dishes, towels, even a coffee maker. We'll be back tomorrow to take you to set up your bank account, Connor said. The first paycheck from the internship will be ready by Friday. We backdated it to last week. After that, you'll get paid every 2 weeks. You save what you can. Build yourself a cushion. We'll help you budget if you need it. Jamal nodded, overwhelmed. He kept waiting to wake up in the cold library, for this to dissolve into a fever dream. Connor seemed to read his thoughts. This is real, Jamal. You earned this by being the kind of person most of us only aspire to be. Now you take this chance, and you build something with it. You become the engineer I know you can be. Deal? Deal. The word came out as a whisper, but Jamal meant it with everything he had. 6 months later, spring sunshine poured through the windows of Fisher Design Group's conference room. Jamal stood at the front, laptop connected to the projector, presenting his analysis of the Hampton Street Bridge renovation. His calculations showed how adjusting the load distribution could extend the bridge's functional life by 20 years, while reducing renovation costs by 30%. Connor watched from the back row, arms crossed, fighting a proud grin. Around the conference table, senior engineers nodded and took notes. When Jamal finished, the lead structural engineer, a woman named Patricia who'd been skeptical about a teenage intern, started applauding. This is exceptional work, Patricia said. Jamal, with your permission, I'd like to submit this to the State Highway Commission. They've been struggling with that exact bridge for months. Jamal's first semester at community college had ended with a 4.0 GPA. He'd tested out of remedial courses, placing directly into calculus and physics. His professors kept asking if he'd considered transferring to the state university's engineering program. They'd write recommendation letters, help with scholarship applications. But better than grades or professional success was the Sunday dinner tradition. Every week, Jamal joined Connor's family, his wife Sarah, Tyler, and Tyler's younger sister Emma. They'd cook together, laugh together, argue about which bridge design in history was most elegant. Sarah treated Jamal like a second son, fussing over whether he was eating enough, sleeping enough, taking care of himself. Tyler had become something unexpected, a friend. They studied together, Tyler struggling through community college courses while Jamal helped him with math. Tyler volunteered at the homeless shelter 3 nights a week now, and he'd convinced his friend group to join him. The boys who'd beaten Jamal behind a convenience store now served meals and sorted donations, their cruelty transformed into service. The club threw Jamal's 18th birthday party at their clubhouse, a surprise that left him speechless. 35 bikers singing Happy Birthday, off-key, a cake shaped like a bridge, and presents that included a leather jacket with engineering patches sewn on the back. "You're part of this family now," Connor had told him, pulling him into a hug. "We take care of our own." Jamal's apartment walls were covered in bridge designs now, sketches and calculations that grew more sophisticated every week. His battered notebook sat on a shelf, its taped pages a reminder of where he'd started. Next to it stood the blue notebook Tyler had given him, filled with meeting notes from his internship. On a warm Tuesday evening in April, Jamal stood on the Hampton Street Bridge, watching traffic flow above while the river rolled below. Connor had driven him here after work, wanting to show him the structure he'd helped save. "The State Commission loved your proposal," Connor said. "They're implementing it. Your calculations, your analysis, it's going to be part of a real bridge renovation. How does that feel?" "Strange," Jamal admitted. "Good strange. Like I'm building something permanent." Connor leaned against the railing. "That's what engineering is, leaving the world better than you found it. Bridges that connect separated places, structures that last beyond our lifetimes." Jamal thought about bridges as more than steel and concrete. Thought about the connection between a homeless kid and a biker who chose to see past circumstances. Thought about the bridge between who he'd been, alone, desperate, invisible, and who he was becoming. "Thank you," Jamal said, "for everything, for seeing something in me worth saving." "You saved my son when you had every reason not to," Connor replied. "That showed me more about your worth than any college degree ever could. I just helped build a bridge to the future you already deserved." Traffic hummed overhead, people going about their lives, crossing from one side to the other without thinking about the structure that held them. But Jamal understood now. The strongest bridges weren't always visible. Some were made of steel and calculation. Others were made of mercy and second chances. Some bridges began with a choice in the moment when walking away would have been easier, the choice to save a life despite every reason not to. And sometimes, if you were fortunate beyond measure, that bridge carried you from loneliness to belonging, from surviving to thriving, from sleeping on cold floors to building dreams that reach toward the sky. The sun set behind the bridge's towers, painting everything in shades of gold and possibility. Jamal pulled out his phone and took a picture, not of the bridge itself, but of the long shadow it cast, dark lines stretching toward tomorrow. If you have enjoyed the story, tell YouTube to send you more stories like this by subscribing to this channel, liking the video, and leaving a comment.